Okay, so I wanted to quickly make this presentation to talk about something which I think a lot of people tend to misunderstand or struggle with. So we're basically going to be looking at a better way to approach your calorie intake, and this is basically looking at your weekly totals versus your daily totals. So let's get into it. So this is how most people tend to approach their calorie intake, which is the daily intake approach. And essentially what happens is, the calculator will give them a certain calorie intake, or you work out you need a certain amount of calories. In this example, it's 1,400 calories per day. And what people tend to do is use that amount day to day. So Monday all the way through to Sunday, they'll just try and stick to that 1,400 calorie total and just focus on that total for the day. Now, unfortunately, the real world isn't that straightforward, and things will happen. And this is where this happens. So, for example, you're perfectly spot on with your diet from Monday through to Thursday. Friday, your calorie intake tends to increase because you've gone out with friends. You've had a few drinks or whatever the case is, and this tends to happen, which is where you freak out and think you've ruined your diet because you've had one bad day of eating, which then unfortunately leads to what I call the fuck it mode, which is, as you can see in this example here, you've had one bad day on Friday and now you believe that your whole diet is ruined. So what's the point? Fuck it. And you end up overeating on Saturday, and the same thing on Sunday. And what actually tends to happen now is you actually have ruined your diet. So this is where a weekly intake approach tends to alleviate a lot of that neuroticism that tends to come with a daily intake approach. So with a weekly intake approach, you can see here that this person, in example, is consuming 1,400 calories Monday through Thursday. Friday, they tend to, they've probably gone out, had a few drinks, a few burgers, a few desserts, whatever the case is. But instead of panicking and freaking out, they go back to the diet on Saturday and Sunday. And this tends to prevent a lot of the damage that would have happened with a daily intake approach. So as the next slide will demonstrate, seeing this person realize that, it's one day, it's no big deal, and they went back to the diet the next day. If you work out the weekly average, the weekly total, despite one heavy calorie day, comes up to 1,542 calories is the weekly average. If you're wondering how I worked that number out, you basically just add all of these numbers together. So 1,400 times 6 plus 2,400 divided by 7 days in a week. That gives you your daily average, which is 1,442 calories, which is only a surplus of 142 calories. So again, in the grand scheme of things, this is nothing. It's minuscule. It's not going to lead you to gain fat. So you can, let out a sigh of relief. So the big thing with the weekly intake is to remind you to focus on not focus on the micro, which is the day to day, and to focus on the macro, which is the bigger picture. Realizing that one day isn't going to ruin your progress as long as you get back on and back on target with your diet. So just to quickly sum up, the benefits of the weekly intake is, one, it gives you flexibility. For example, if on the weekends that you're probably going to be going out with friends, you have an occasion coming up as a birthday party, whatever the case may be, where you're going to be consuming more food than normal. It allows you to sort of have a bit more of a psychological relief where you're not going to ruin your diet if you do overeat on that day, because your weekly intake will still be in check. Two, as I've demonstrated in the slides, it removes the fuck it mentality towards your diet. Taking a step back and looking at it very objectively, knowing that even if you did have one bad day, of eating, or one day where you went over your calorie intake by a small number of calories, it isn't the end of the world. And as long as you get back on track and your weekly averages are in line, you're still going to make progress. And then the third reason, it reminds you to focus on the bigger macro picture. So a lot of people tend to focus on the day-to-day, and the one bad day of eating becomes like the be-all end-all. And taking a step back and looking at your weekly intake over your calorie intake over a week, it just reminds you that one bad day or even 2 bad days of eating aren't going to make that much of a difference as long as you get back on track with your diet. So it tends to, again, provide psychological relief, and it tends to stop a lot of the neuroticism that happens with, just tracking your calories day to day. So guys, that's pretty much it. Just wanted to make this quick presentation to, talk about the benefits of a weekly intake versus daily intake. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, let me know.